Everyone, the new season of Andor, season 2 on Disney Plus is out, and it's creating a pretty big stir out there. There's a few different plot lines and storylines in the opening episodes that have, I don't know, stirred up a few comments, let's just say. So I thought I would just give a quick hot take on the three episodes that we saw. And first off, I really got to say, I love Cassian. I love Cassian Andor so much. I think he's probably one of the best and most compelling new characters that we've seen in the Star Wars universe in recent years, we'll just say. And part of that is because he's just a regular person. And that's what I love about the Andor series, is it's just regular people doing regular things, and we're seeing what the impact of the imperial, let's just call it government, has on regular people's lives and how those power dynamics play out in ways that, you never imagined. You're just trying to live your life. You're just trying to do work to stay alive. And suddenly there are these people coming in and rewriting rules and doing whatever they want, however they want, and making critical key decisions with or without you that benefit them at your expense. And I think that is the heart and the soul of why Rogue One really resonated. And frankly, it's the heart and soul of why Star Wars, the original film, resonated. We got to see in Star Wars back in 1977 the rebellion as it came together. So we saw it at that point. And now we're seeing the rebellion in its most kind of nascent, disorganized stage as the bits and pieces, these disparate groups of people come together to figure out how to beat the empire. And in season one, we saw what it meant for Cassian and what it means for regular people in those early stages as the Republic fell and as the Empire kind of rose and grew in power. And now we're seeing what it means when the Empire is in power and it's trying to solidify its hold on the systems, on the people, and on the power structures that exist, and what it takes to break those power structures down and make people dependent on them in ways that mean if they don't go along with the empire, they get crushed. And so, what we're getting with season two are basically four storylines in these first three episodes. One is the wedding of Mon Mothma's daughter. And I have to say, it is gorgeous. Like, whatever you might say. And yeah, it's a little bit too long, frankly. They really could have cut it down a bit, but it's gorgeous. Like, what they did with the production design, what they did with the costumes, what they did with the spaces that these people were walking around in and living within. You felt them moving within their world. I gotta say, the only thing I can complain about is that it just didn't need three episodes to string that out, frankly. I get why they did it, and I actually appreciate why they did it, but it was kind of long, felt kind of long. And, I did really like the guy trying to kind of blackmail Mon Mothma for the expenses that he has gone through to help her out. And I love that Luthen was like, here's a problem we need to solve. And isn't it nice that you've never had to worry about that kind of thing before? But now we have to worry about it. And I think that that was something powerful. And that final scene of the wedding with Mon Mothma when she's dancing and just the music as it's playing and all the other things happening at the end of that third episode kind of mimic the fever pitch of how the rebellion was building and all of kind of the disorganization that has been going on up to this point and how people have been living with it and through it. And as that music kind of built to a fever pitch, as Mon Mothma began to dance with more and more alcohol in her system, and she just had to let it all out. She had to let it all go. That felt very honest, very real, and very natural in the story. The second story that we see is really focused in on the Empire and Dedra's place in the Empire. It's really her story at this point. And she's in a meeting with the kind of the government officials that are looking at how they can take over this planet, Gorman, and use its resources, deplete it, and destroy it, basically, according to what their needs are and how that will kind of translate in best terms for them in order to get what they need, increase fear, and tighten their hold on that part of the galaxy. And then the other thing that we see with Dedra is her relationship with Syril. And we're 1 year after the end of Andor season 1. And we see how Syril and Dedra have actually kind of joined forces. They found kindred spirits in one another. And I actually really like that because you do have to imagine these people in the Empire doing the work that they think is the right thing to do. They believe in what they're doing, but they're also living very normal lives. They're having very normal relationships. And then we see how that's come together for them. They're living together in this space. They decide to have dinner with his very overbearing mother. And she's just a tyrant and he hates her. And he just finally just walks away. He gives up. He doesn't want to deal with it. And I think the best scene for Dedra is that scene with Syril's mother, where she very pointedly puts down the rules for what that relationship is going to be. And either she plays along or she gets out. There are no two ways about it. And in that moment, the mother decides she's going to play along because she wants to be part of the power structure in the best way that she can. So then that gets us to the third story, or really the third and fourth story, because they both really integrate Cassian into their stories. And so Cassian's story is like he's a year out now from the end of season 1, and his story is kind of bifurcated. One part of it is he's off on a secret mission. The other part is his family friends are on the farming planet, doing wheat harvesting. And that's basically Bix, Brasso, and Willem, and the little B2 robot. So what we get here is the farming planet where they are working and they don't have papers, but the Empire comes to the planet and starts looking for rebels, starts causing trouble, and everyone is kind of scrambling to stay alive. People start betraying each other. People start looking for ways that they can kind of save themselves, but maybe help other people if they can. And we see the impact that the Empire has on just regular communities and how that translates to regular people in everyday lives doing everyday things and important resources that are being kind of grown and taken and then redistributed to places that are of importance to the Empire at the expense of the people doing the work and what that means for the people in those places. One of the most controversial scenes here is the local, let's just call him Imperial leader, who is kind of leading the charge on checking everybody's quote unquote papers on the planet. He comes to the place where Bix and Brasso and Wilmon are living and waiting for Cassian to return. The Imperial leader takes a liking to Bix. From their first interaction, you can tell that something is going to happen. There are a series of clear, let's just call them signs, that he is going to try something with her and he's going to try to force himself on her. Eventually, that does happen. He tries and they struggle, they fight. She ends up killing him. There's been a lot of pushback on this, though, because some people say we've never had to worry about this kind of thing in the Star Wars universe. There isn't a place for this in the Star Wars universe. As a survivor of such things myself, I've got to say, in every society, there is a place for this kind of thing. Wherever there is a human or a living being who can force power upon another person, there is place for this kind of story, especially in a world that has the power structure looking for ways that they can force people to comply in whatever way they'd like, so that they then in the future don't have to try to force people to do things. They just let them. That's never okay, ever. None of those things are ever okay. And I think that in this story, it actually did work in how they did it. They did it in a tasteful way. They gave us some early warnings that something might happen. They prepared us for this. And when it happened, the thing didn't actually happen. We see Bix fight him. She sees a way to survive and she takes it. This kind of violence isn't new in the Star Wars universe. And I would even argue with anyone that this doesn't belong. I mean, I think this absolutely fits into this universe. And I think it's actually a lot less violent to see a woman who is in the act of being sexually assaulted by a powerful figure in the Empire, successfully fighting him off and killing him in the process, is a lot less violent than seeing Luke Skywalker's Uncle Owen and Aunt Rue basically being confronted by these stormtroopers. And sure, we don't see them firing on Owen and Rue, but we do see their smoking skeletons on the farm when Luke comes back and he sees what's happened to his aunt and uncle. And that changes him. There are so many parts of this story that do resonate with Star Wars, the original Star Wars, if you really think back to all the things that are happening at that time. And this is just one of them. This is just one of the things that is leading up to that moment where Owen and Beru get murdered by the Empire and their corpses are left to smoke and rot in the sun for Luke to find them. I think that's pretty stark and pretty vivid and a lot more violent than what we saw with Bix. So I do think that that was a good story to tell because it illustrated something that needed to be addressed in some way because of the way the Empire was moving in and taking whatever they wanted. And literally, they just finished the scene about the Gorman and how they were going to take the planet and kill everyone on it. Take what they need and go. Use it as an example. So yeah, it all fits. They're all different pieces that belong in that puzzle, building to rebellion. And then finally, the fourth story that we get is Cassian on this Imperial base, because he seems to have a superpower for just walking through Imperial bases and taking what he wants from them because they have no idea how to stop a guy like Cassian Andor. So he comes in and he takes this special prototype TIE fighter. And what I love about this particular scene is that you also have kind of throwbacks. You have memories of Star Wars Rebels, the animated series, where suddenly they're seeing the prototype of this little TIE fighter, big TIE fighter. And I think that is a really nice thread to kind of pull into Andor season two. We are starting to see lots of these little threads from other stories coming together in Andor season two. And that really is the whole point of everything in this season. I've also seen some people complaining about the girl who kind of gives Andor the, access to the TIE fighter and that she's crying and some people are making fun of her size, but honestly, I don't care how big she is. Like, she's not even that big. And I find it a little weird that people are focusing on that because people across the galaxy have all shapes and sizes and they're all kinds of creatures. So who cares about that, frankly? And the fact that she's crying, I mean, she said it herself. As soon as he flies away with that thing, she's gonna die. And she knows it. And he's the last person that she's really going to talk to in a meaningful way, who knows what she's done and why she did it. And all she can do is hope that it has some kind of real impact on stopping the empire from what they're doing. And it also goes to show that the people working within the imperial structures are not all bad people. Good people get caught up in these things and then they can't get out and they can't do anything different. And that's the whole point of a fascist empire like what we've got here in Star Wars, where doesn't matter who you are. Once they get you in, you're in and you can't get out. And when you do something like give access to a prototype to someone like Cassian Andor, that's probably the last thing that you're going to do. They will find you and they will take you and they will kill you or torture you or worse. That's why she's crying. And I think that that's a fair reaction. I probably would cry too. And one of the best things about that first episode is seeing Andor in that special prototype TIE fighter, in which he's like, this isn't the ship that I was trained on. He was expecting something else. It's similar enough that he can figure it out fairly quickly. It's different enough that he starts creating all kinds of problems. There are a few things here that I really had to keep in mind while I was watching it. And I watched an interview with Diego Luna when he's talking about this scene. And I'm telling you, one thing you can't fake is the pure enjoyment that Diego Luna has on his face when he talks about his time as Cassian Andor and his time in the Star Wars universe. That man loves his job. That man loves his role as Cassian. And he loved bringing this character into this world because when you get down to it, Cassian Andor is just like the rest of us. He's just one person trying to figure out how to survive. And he's really good at it, but he cannot do it alone. He needs help. He needs help from people across the spectrum of the empire in order to get the things he needs, in order to help create the resources that the rebels need to fight the empire. And he is in that TIE fighter trying to figure it out, like screwing up. I don't know how he could do it without damaging the TIE fighter or, I just don't know. I think it feels like something should have happened, whether it was in the bay or not. And, maybe the steel is so strong that it can stand a certain amount of smashing and crashing. But then when the stormtroopers come in and just start firing on it, that did kind of seem kind of stupid. I mean, the first thing they should have done is like, it's malfunctioning, what's happening, who's in there, why would they want to destroy a prototype that they're supposed to be guarding? I loved how Diego Luna pulled that scene off and he made it feel very real from Cassian Andor's point of view and blasting through, getting out, and then going to the meeting point on the planet. I have to say, I did not enjoy the interactions, let's just say, on the planet with those people who were there. They were not good people. They were so disorganized. They had no sense of community. They had no sense of togetherness or, we're all stuck on this planet. We have to figure out how to survive to get off of it. And they make some really, really stupid decisions that just don't make sense. And it just got strung out way too long, and the point where it's like dark when they say that the big animals and creatures come out at night. They're out there in the foliage and they set down their guns for a rock paper scissors fight. It just is kind of childish in a way. And I don't think that that was really the best use of time. They could have shortened that part dramatically. And I'm glad Cassian got away. I'm glad he didn't take anyone with him because they were all horrible people. But what it did illustrate is that there were people who didn't want to be part of the Empire, who were rebelling in some way, but didn't have a cohesive structure. And Andor got a kind of an up close look at what rebellion without leadership looks like. And I think that was the point of the scene. It took a long time for them to get through that point, but that was the point of the scene. And fine, I go with it. It worked. Just could have been a little bit shorter. He finally gets out, goes to the farming planet, and gets there just in time to save Bix, basically. Brasso's dead. Wilmon is there, and they get out alive. And that's basically the end of the 3 episodes. What they did is they've broken the series up into these 3 episode chunks that will kind of represent 1 year at a time leading up to Rogue One. I think that it was actually a really good decision. I know not everybody is a fan of like the 3 episode release, but here's the thing. With a series like this that is actually fairly slow moving, you can kill the momentum with a weekly release. And I've talked about this a lot. And Disney has had this terrible habit of releasing slow moving episodes, 1 episode a week. And then it just kind of kills it. And people drift away and they don't come back. And I think by doing it like this, they're kind of getting the best of both worlds that they are trying to take advantage of. They're allowing a certain amount of binging, which I think is really important for people today. We love to binge our shows. And so they're giving us a little bit of that binge satisfaction. And because of that, the 3 episodes work together really well. Andor is the best new series that Disney has produced. I think that, even with the first 3 episodes being slow, what they did with them was important. And they did a good job of bringing together what it felt like to build a rebellion, what it felt like to be repressed, what it felt like to figure out how to fight. And that's what we got with this first episode or first group of episodes. And I think that that pressure and that intensity is just going to keep building and building and building and building from there until we get to Rogue One. And honestly, if Disney, anyone is listening to me who works for Disney, what you need to do is time a release of Rogue One in the theaters following the last set of episodes for this series. Because I promise you, everyone who watches this series will have an impulse to go see Rogue One in the theater because it is a darn good movie. And wouldn't it be great to see that culmination of everything coming back together? I think that would be a brilliant marketing move on Disney's part. And if they don't do it, they're leaving money on the table. And honestly, Disney hates leaving money on the table. So I hope they do it. I hope they listen to me. But hey, they probably won't. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. That's all I have for you. That's kind of a long take on these 3 episodes. I really want to know what you think of these episodes because we have a lot to talk about here. And I'm sure that over the next couple weeks, we'll have a lot more to talk about. So please do leave a comment below. Let's chat about these 4 different storylines that we've got going on in these 3 episodes. Was it timed well for you? Did you like the pacing? Was it too long for you? Were any of these scenes inappropriate? Do you disagree with me? And it's fine to disagree with me. In fact, I love when Star Wars fans have different views and are not afraid to share them and are willing to have a conversation about them. That's what Star Wars fans have done since 1977, or really 1976, when Lucasfilm first started pushing this film out into audiences to tell them about it. So let me know what you think. Be sure to like and subscribe and share this video. I would be very grateful. Thank you so much, you guys. I will see you all again soon. In the meantime, maybe also check out one of these reviews. All right. Happy viewing. Bye for now.